I don't think there's anybody in the city of Montreal who wasn't watching tonight's hockey game, whether you were live or whether you were watching from home. The anticipation for this game was palpable. The Canadiens versus the Islanders, Marty St. Louis versus Patrick Roy. And for a while, the Canadiens stuck to the game plan and they had a lead. But what happened? Well, they did what they normally do. They made mistakes. Coming out of the break, you're going to say, whatever. Not me. They got 1 point, and it's not enough. Let's talk some puck. Hey, gang. Coach K here for PuckTalk Montreal, welcoming you to this post-game edition of the show as we look back at a heartbreaking overtime loss against the New York Islanders by a score of 4-3, where it looked like the defensemen were going to do all the scoring until late in the hockey game. But there was a lot to look over this game early on, a lot of positive and a hell of a lot of negative as we went out. So let's start, as always, with our game highlights. Yes, I put together a new graphic. The Olympic break gave me time to do things. So it started off with the Islanders scoring a goal in the first period, but as luck would have it, the Canadiens still perfect on offside challenges. You'll see it right here, clear as day, bottom of your screen. Matt Schaefer well offside on the play, and there's no issue with that. The goal was disallowed, and we went on. We went on until the 12-11 mark of the first period, where Noah Dobson got a puck in transition from Lane Hutson. Watch this as Hudson makes a nice pass along the near side over to Dobson. He comes across the line and rips a clean one past Ilya Sorokin to make it 1-0 Montreal. Here it is again. Dobson, clean look, fires glove side, beating Sorokin. That makes it 1-0 Montreal. We go to the second period. And in the second period, about midway through, guess what? Dobson does it again. But before he does, there's a goal that's disallowed. Why? Well, because of a distinct kicking motion. Now, between you and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, it looks nothing of the sort. But watch right here. What's distinct about this kick? He muled it. But anyway, we'll talk about it later during my game report. But as I was saying, that goal got disallowed, and there was a collective, oh crap, in the Bell Center. Here we go again. The referees are against this. Well, that didn't really happen. The Islanders uncharacteristically taking a few penalties in this hockey game, giving the Canadiens a couple of power plays, and on one of those power plays, Noah Dobson gets a second of the game on a pass from Alex Texier right here, puts it on his pallet, and he rips a long one past Sorokin, this time on the blocker side, to make it 2-0 Montreal, and everybody's smiling. Now, we come to the part where we always say, ref, you suck. And this goes specifically to TJ Luxmore. TJ, I don't like you very much. Number one, you don't give that goal on the kick by Caulfield, which, anyway, I'll talk about in a bit. But now, you also go out and you give a penalty to Slav for a stick battle between two players, and, oh my God, he dropped his stick, and the penalty gets called from center ice, no less. Now, I have a problem with that. If there's a referee right there watching the play, and you're at center, and you see a guy drop his stick, you have no business calling that from the middle of the ice. Pure and simple. Let Eric Furlap do his job, but no, TJ Luxmore has to get into the play. What does that do? Well, it gets the Islanders on the power play. And right off that face-off, Mike Matheson takes a penalty for high sticking on Matthew Barzal. Lo and behold, all of a sudden, 5-on-3. And what happens? Well, the best rookie goal scorer in the NHL, or close to it, at least for defensemen anyway, Matthew Schaefer gets on the board as he gets the puck right here and rips one past multiple glove side, just like Dobson did, to make it 2-1. So, with that, who comes out of the box? Well, Juraj Slafkovsky. Matheson stays in. And as his penalty comes to an end, just 55 seconds after Schaefer opened the scoring for the Islanders, he does it again. This time, he takes the puck for a skate and shows everybody the skill that made him the first overall pick. Here's a delay, turns, looks, fires, scores. Now, to me, it looked like it went off Dobson's stick, and there was a screen in front by Anders Lee, and that's how it got past Montembeault, making it a 2-2 hockey game. And I'll get to a lot of that net front stuff a little bit later on in the show as well during the game report, because there was a change that happened during this game that I did not like. Now, we fast forward to the third period. And I know we bitched and complained about the fact that guys are breaking their sticks all the time. Well, this time it actually worked in the Canadiens' favor. As on a failed one-timer by Juraj Slafkovsky, the puck goes off the skates of Ivan Demidov, right behind Sorokin, onto the stick of who? Mr. Clutch, Cole Caulfield. Watch this again. Exploding stick, off a skate, and then right to Caulfield, and that makes it 3-2 Montreal. Everybody's happy. People are doing the wave. Some are singing ole ole, and it's all premature. Why? Because as we all know, Patrick Waugh loves to pull his goaltender early when he's down by a goal. And he does just that with just under 3 minutes left. Sorokin goes to the bench. The Canadiens, for their part, the entire third period, they kept on giving the puck back to the Islanders. And what did the Islanders do? They rammed it right down their throats to the point where Anders Lee scores from his office in front of the net on a shot from up high that hits him in the chest and goes in. That shot by Bo Horvat right from the high slot, bing, off the chest of Anders Lee, and the captain gets things even with just a minute, 9 seconds left in the third period. And guess what? We're going to overtime. The Canadiens really didn't get any good looks in overtime with the exception of one shot by Nick Suzuki. On the impending faceoff, a mistake in defensive coverage leads to a breakaway for Xhekaj Pajot. As the battle ensues off the boards, Holmstrom puts it off the boards right to Pajot, and he'll come in clear cut to go 5-hole on Monty and make it a 4-3 win for the Islanders. Here it is again, right between the legs. That's all she wrote, and everybody's headed to the gates. And nobody is happy. Why? Because number one, we started cheering a little bit too early, and everybody thought the Canadiens had the game in hand. They didn't. Why? I'll tell you right now in my game report. Let me start this off by saying one thing. I don't know who the a-hole was that decided not to play Arbor Xhekaj in the third period, but he was by far the best Montreal Canadiens defenseman in front of their own net, boxing out guys like Anders Lee all game long. And when you needed somebody physical in front of the net, you decided to what? Leave him on the bench. Granted, he got 12 minutes, so he got decent ice time tonight. But still, he proved without a shadow of a doubt that his physicality against a team like the Islanders brought a lot to the table. He was a physical along the boards. He cleared the front of the net for Montembeault. And lo and behold, when push came to shove, Arbor wasn't out there. The only thing that happened to him tonight was the puck took a funny hop out of the corner and caught him off guard. Other than that, he was extremely solid. Playing good shifts, being good in his own zone, and creating some offense as well. But his most important job, which was clearing the front of the net, he did to perfection. And what does he get in return? His ass parked on the bench. And what happens? You end up with Alexander Carrier in front of the net trying to clear out a guy that outweighs him by 50 pounds. Not only that, but instead of being behind the guy trying to push him out from your goaltender's view, Carrier is in front of him trying to do what? Block a shot from 2 feet in front of his goaltender? I have a problem with this strategy from time to time, and this one's a big one because it didn't just happen to give up one goal like that. It was two. Because on Schaefer's second goal, Lee was providing the screen, and again, Carrier was right in front of the net. A big, glaring mistake by the Montreal Canadiens defensively. And this isn't something, again, everybody, including, I forget who it is, I think it's VDOC, says this is Marty St. Louis deciding not to put him out there. I beg to differ. This is Steph Robida. And I'm sorry, you need to take a look at what's going on in a hockey game and reward your players for good play. Xhekaj was better than Carrier, period. And what happened? Carrier was out there when the chips were on the table. In overtime, who's the better skater? Carrier or Xhekaj? I think it's Xhekaj, honestly. It's not Carrier. And during a lot of this hockey game, when the game became physical in the third period, Carrier shit the bed. He couldn't clear the puck along the half wall, and it led to chances for the New York Islanders. That gets to my second point. After the Canadiens gave up both goals in the second period, right? Or even after those penalties were done, all of a sudden they decided we're going to play defensive hockey. I'm sorry, but during the majority of this hockey game, when the Canadiens pushed the pace, the Islanders were taking uncharacteristic penalties and didn't have an answer for the Habs. But instead, what do? Oh, let's take our pedal off the metal a little bit here, and let's try to defend a little bit. Guess how that worked out? Yes, the Canadiens got a goal on the power play to give them a lead in the third period, but for the most part, unequivocally, it was the Islanders that actually dominated the third period. And so you could sit there and you could say, oh, yeah, we were close to winning. You weren't. The score indicated that you had a lead, but in the third period, all the momentum was on the side of the Islanders. And that's what the Canadiens have to avoid going into the playoffs. The push starts now. And if you're not going to be good enough to actually push and work hard and try to get the puck up the ice instead of just dumping it in softly because what? You're tired after a 2-week break? Is that what it is? If that's the case, then the guy should have skated 2 weeks and not taken any vacation time, period. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be out there saying that Sam Montembeault did not have a good hockey game. And early on, it looked like it was going to be a bad one, right? Puck getting in behind him. Of course, that disallowed goal that the Islanders had scored. And it looked like, oh, maybe Montembeault was not going to play very well. But you know what? He battened down the hatches after that. He played, I won't say extremely well, but he played well given the fact that they had been off for 2 weeks. Now, on the overtime goal, they went through the wickets. Not much that he could have done more on that goal, knowing that Pajot was coming in from the right side and cutting across. You're coming across in a solid butterfly. Paddle down, please. Don't have it up. Paddle down. Close the 5-hole up. Don't give anything to Pajot. Instead, no, you know what? My stick's going to be off to the side as I do my lateral movement. There's something, again, that I'm going to watch because Marciano worked on it. And for the most part, in this hockey game, Montembeault followed what Marciano's been teaching him. But then, he makes the mistake in OT. Now, there's more than that mistake in OT, right? Let's talk a little bit about Phillip Danault, who made a couple of mistakes during the game defensively that cost the Canadiens some real quality scoring opportunities, especially on the penalty kill and that 5-on-5 goal. That 5-on-4 goal that Matthew Schaefer scored. But let's talk about overtime. There's a simple rule when you're playing 3-on-3. Take a man. Don't try to defend an area of the ice. Don't try to overpinch. So off the face-off, there's a battle along the boards between Noah Dobson and Holmstrom. And what happens? Danault backs off and he's watching the puck. J.G. Pajot, to his credit, recognizes that Danault is puck watching and he skates in behind him. Chip pass off the boards by Holmstrom and away goes Pajot. And what does Danault do? Instead of trying to get on his horse and correct his own mistake, he tries to push Juraj Slafkovsky fast enough to get back and try to get Pajot. You know, I love Phillip Danault, okay? He brings a lot to the table when it comes to winning faceoffs. He's very good defensively, and you know what? He had a relatively good game. But the one thing that he cannot afford to do is make mistakes defensively. It's what he's counted on here. He's not counted on to score an abundance of goals. He's there to win faceoffs and make sure he defends his own zone well. Provide a little bit of energy if he can. You take a look at Brendan Gallagher blocking shots, taking shots off the backside of his leg, doing all the things that a veteran needs to do. But on the other side of the things, Danault dropped the ball a little bit in this hockey game. I was just disappointed in the way he played. Another thing that disappointed me during this game, and I know there's a lot of negative here, but hey, it is what it is, right? The Canadiens lost, so get used to it. One thing that really bothered me, especially on the Canadiens power play, I know they got 2 power play goals. Don't get me wrong here. One of them was scored by the primary unit off a lucky bounce on a broken stick, and the other one was scored by the secondary unit on a shot by Noah Dobson from the blue line. But the one thing that bothered me a lot, especially when it came to the first unit, is they keep looking for goals in tight, right? They'll come in along the goal line. They're looking for a cross seam across the crease over to Demidov or Slavkovsky, or they're looking for something in tight for somebody like Caulfield. But they're not looking at the obvious shot that you have coming from the blue line. In the third period, when the Canadiens had a power play, they had Noah Dobson, Caden Gooley out there, and he was open for a one-timer, and instead of giving him the puck, they kept it down low. And that wasn't even on the power play. On the power play, Hudson was open, and they didn't even give him the puck. And they keep looking down low along the goal line, thinking that the Islanders, who are one of the best defensive teams in the league, are going to give them an inch that close in tight. Here's a philosophy that a lot of coaches employ. When you collapse the defense down low like that and it opens up the point, give the puck to the point and let them shoot into the crowd. Look for some dirty goals. Don't look for the one top cheese in tight. Dirty goals are what wins playoff games. So stop trying to finesse. I've said this before, and people talk to me about the show I did about offense, and this was one of the points I made. Stop looking for the finesse. Start looking for the garbage. Get the puck into the feet. Try to get it through seams, get the garbage goals, get guys crashing the net, do something. But no, instead, we get in tight, and instead we don't move the puck back to the point. We look to try to go cross seam to make it look pretty. Stop. The opportunities are there. Point shots are open. Use them. Teams are expecting you to come in along the goal line because you've had success with it throughout the season. So instead of doing the same thing over and over again, which Einstein declared to be the definition of insanity, try something different, because when you do different things, it gets the other team to think. And when the other team thinks, they make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, you capitalize. It's pretty simple to me. But instead, no, we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to just stick to the same thing we do over and over again. And what does that get us? Nothing. I mean, I don't know what more to say about this game. I liked Caden Gooley's game. He was physical. I liked Xhekaj's game a lot tonight, and I think that the Canadiens need to look at the video and say to themselves, you know what, we need to use this guy a little bit more often, right? I expected it to be Struble in the lineup, given the fact that they just don't like Arbor that much. But Arbor went out there, he played his 11:58, and you know what? He played extremely well in those minutes. He wasn't a liability. He brought offense. He brought physicality. He cleared guys from the front of the net for multiple to be able to see the puck. What more do you want from your biggest, most physical defenseman? Not much, right? So when you turn around and you say, in looking at this game, that you don't trust Xhekaj, you're lying to yourself as a coaching staff, because he was good enough to be given not just more time, but more responsibility in those areas where in front of the net, you need somebody to be big and physical and clear guys out. Noah Dobson obviously had a great game. He did the same thing as far as being physical on the ice, clearing guys from the front of the net. He wasn't quite as openly physical as Xhekaj, but that's not his game. But he used his size to his advantage. Now, what the Canadiens need to get away from is fronting defense, right? I talked about Alexander Carrier, right? Being on the ice for the last 2 goals of the game. Doing what? Fronting. I should say the last 2 goals in regulation. Let me correct myself. What is he out there doing? Fronting. And fronting is when your defenseman stands in front of the opposing player trying to block shots instead of taking the man in front, tying him up. Traditionally, back in the 80s and 90s, guys didn't front. They stood in behind guys, and you remember the good old days with Chris Pronger, Shea Weber. They'd beat on you with their sticks until you couldn't feel your back anymore, right? But for the most part, nowadays, most teams like to front because you don't want to take a penalty in front of your own net. To hell with that. Okay? I haven't seen a referee give a guy a cross-checking call in front of the net and just knock a guy down into the ice. If you're giving him the business in the lower back a little bit, or you're pushing him at the bottom of the pass to try to get him out from in front of the net, that's okay. And that's what Xhekaj was doing in this hockey game. He wasn't fronting. Anders Lee parked in front of the crease. Arbor said, So if Alexander Carrier is the type of defenseman that cannot do that job, then shouldn't the ice time be flipped? and give a little bit more ice to Arbor in order to play in those situations, instead of giving that ice to Carrier and him not being able to do what you want him to do out there, which is clear the front of the net? I mean, it's logical, right? Put it in the comments if you think I'm nuts. But Arbor played really well, and his physicality in this game showed tenfold. He was a difference maker defensively for Montreal. The minute they started to pull back on his ice time in the third period, you started to see a variation in the way they defended. And what happened? They kept giving the puck back to the Islanders. Instead of having clean zone exits and being able to get the puck out of the zone, right? They weren't able to beat the Islanders' forecheck. Why? Because the Islanders were too physical. That's why you need a guy like Xhekaj back there. That's why you need somebody to be a little bit more physical. Granted, you got to give some credit to Mike Matheson. He played a more physical game than he normally does. But that's not his style of game, right? His style is get the puck up, move it up, get it to your forwards, help the offense a little bit. That's not what happened when Carrier was out there. That's not what happened. Gouli did a good job of it. Dobson had a hell of a game. But you had only maybe 4 defensemen out of the 6, that really played well, right? You're talking about Matheson. You're talking about Gouli. Well, you could say Hudson played well too. But you have Hudson, all 5. The only guy that didn't play well tonight, Alex Carrier. Pure and simple, I think, anyway. But where do you go from here if you're the Canadiens? Well, you got to look at your wounds really quickly, because Washington's coming into Montreal for a Saturday night tilt out the Bell Center, and you know Alex Ovechkin loves Saturday night in Montreal. So what does that mean? Well, for us, that means that tomorrow night at 8 p.m., we're going live with our pregame show and with our usual show where we talk about some of the stuff going on in and around the National Hockey League, including some information I found out about players that are being asked about in the Montreal Canadiens organization. Now, one thing I'm going to say right now is it's 11:13 on February 26th, and Patrik Laine is still a Montreal Canadien. And while everybody thinks that I'm crazy, I'm telling you, okay, I can't come out and say what I know because it wouldn't be right. I've been told things in confidence that I can't repeat. But I've been told this, clear as day. Laine wants to stay in Montreal. He doesn't want to move. And while everybody's saying that, yeah, he's open, his agent has been given permission to talk to other teams. Let me tell you something about the agent talking to other teams, okay? Nothing happens unless somebody talks to a GM, right? So the GMs have to make the deal first, and then the agents are advised, and then the players are advised. That's how the system works. So anybody that comes out and says that the Montreal Canadiens told Patrik Laine's agent that he's allowed to talk to other teams is full of shit. Let's make that clear, okay? And I know for a fact that Patrik Laine said he doesn't want to go. He'd like to stay in Montreal. So you've got conflicting stories, right? And you've got people that are saying, yeah, Laine is going to get traded before the trade deadline. Why? Because it's the popular thought process, the popular opinion. It's not the way things work. And I'll go into it a little bit more during tomorrow night's live show, because I've got other names that teams are actually inquiring about that I found out about, not necessarily what they offered, but players who are of interest to other teams. There are some players that the Canadiens would like to move for obvious reasons. Some they can't, some they won't. But the bottom line is this. There are teams inquiring about players on the Montreal Canadiens that, while their names are interesting that they came up, I don't necessarily see the Montreal Canadiens moving some of these players because it wouldn't make very much sense. But we'll talk about it tomorrow, and we'll answer your questions in the live chat. Once again, the Montreal Canadiens lose a heartbreaker in overtime 4-3 to the Islanders. We talk tomorrow live. And don't forget, keep your skates down and your stick on the ice. Ciao for now.